Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning has been getting a lot of talk this weekend, but let's talk about another espionage franchise, 007. GoldenEye turns 30 this year. This was actually the first James Bond movie I ever saw in a theater. I was aware of this franchise. I mean, do you remember 15 Days of 007 on TNT? I was into them, but it was experiencing this in a theater that made me a full-fledged fan of these movies. This was a big revamp for Bond, one that ushered the character into the 90s. And you may not know that by the late 80s, people felt this character was outdated. The two films starring Timothy Dalton didn't exactly do as well as others in the franchise, and the studio was even convinced for a moment that perhaps James Bond is done. After the passing of spearheading producer Albert R. Broccoli, his daughter Barbara Broccoli took over, and they wanted to keep this going. As a matter of fact, when this got greenlit, they considered bringing Timothy Dalton back, but by 1992 they decided to do a full-on reset. Now in the mid-80s, Pierce Brosnan almost landed this role. He was the star of Remington Steele. They thought he would be great to play 007, but there were commitments to the show that he couldn't get out of, so they had to pass him up. When they got another chance to cast him, he jumped on board. I feel his casting really worked out in the end, and aesthetically, it delivered a more high-octane James Bond, a film that was pretty ruthless, a lot more brutal, and quite risky. The character of Xenia Onatopp alone reflects that, and upon its release, this was treated like a big event. It was all over the tabloids. Being the first Bond film in 6 years and maintaining the record of the longest gap between two movies in this franchise, it proved that people were still into Bond. Audiences loved it, and it made bank at the box office. It even notably led to a video game adaptation that I think many of us consider one of the best video games of all time, and among its many great qualities is that banger pause music, folks. From the bungee jump that introduces this entire film to that crazy motorcycle jump off the cliff. And one of my favorite sequences in this movie, the tank chase through St. Petersburg. But notably, I love the approach of the villain here. Sean Bean as Alec Trevelyan is excellent. It gives Bond a more personal story because the villain is a former 00 agent. And then, Boris, I am invincible! Such a goofy character that is reflective of certain villains in this franchise, but often a very hilarious and entertaining one. Bringing on director Martin Campbell was a great idea because he knew how to approach this reset. He would revamp this entire franchise again in 2006 with Casino Royale. Not only does this remain my favorite 007 movie to star Pierce Brosnan, but it's one of my favorite 007 movies of all time.